All right. Well, hello, everyone. Tonight, I am thrilled to be here with my dear friend once again, Stephan Labossiere. Let me say that it is thrilling to do a part two of our conversation. And first, let me say once again, good evening to all of you. Thank you for being here with us tonight. This is the Epic Sexual Health Talk. And first, I'll introduce myself before introducing this magnificent soul in front of me here. I am Dr. Julissa and a board certified naturopathic doctor, practicing now for over 20 years, international speaker, author, radio television personality, and founder of the Natural Health Center, Inc., where my home office is on Park Avenue, just 2 blocks from the Empire State Building, and have other offices across the US. And now, here, I will present to you my amazing dear friend, Stephan Labossiere. And Stephan is a world renowned certified relationship coach. He is a best selling author of 10 books, and his following on all his platforms, including a phenomenal YouTube channel, Instagram accounts, Facebook, and so on, followers of over 5 million. And my friends, it is an absolute honor for me to introduce to you Stephan Labossiere.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I'm thrilled. Did I forget anything? Please tell everyone a little bit more if I missed anything.
No, I mean you covered everything. Just I'm all about just helping people with their life, relationships, healing, just trying to walk in the purpose God has given me.
Ah, blessings, blessings. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. So, we were discussing about beginning with juiciness as far as the conversation is concerned. So, everyone, Stefan's books, I have read specifically 3 of them that I am thrilled to have read and found so helpful. And we'll begin, obviously, with how we can bring together relationships with being also balanced in our sexual health. And for those of you that know Stefan's books, the first one that we will be referring to is How to Get a Man to Cherish You, also one of my top 3 favorites. And let's go straight to chapter 7, shall we, Stefan?
Okay.
And the topic of chapter 7 of your book, Cherish, is sexual satisfaction. First, let me make a disclaimer. We want to be sure that all of you are over 18, because as you know, if you've been following me for quite some time, ever since the Michael Baisden show, I like to be blunt and when it comes to your health. And so, no beating around the bush here. We want to make sure that all of you are over 18 years old. We will be discussing some very in depth adult topics. And so, just make sure that the kids are out of the room right now. All adults only. Okay, wonderful. So, Stefan, I'll begin with the first paragraph, and I would love for you to elaborate because what we really want these listeners tonight to understand is that there really is a connection between having a healthy relationship and also being balanced in your sexual health. So, in chapter 7 of your book, Cherish, Sexual Satisfaction, it begins, and you wrote, it's all about mutual satisfaction. Sex is an important part of a healthy marriage and committed relationship. It's important for both of you to be satisfied and to get what you desire sexually. All sex is not created equal. This chapter is not about you just accepting the chore of sex, as this book was written for women. Am I correct?
Yeah, correct.
What I want you to understand, you write, is that your partner desires sexual pleasure from you and for you to satisfy him sexually. In order for that to happen, you need to know what he likes and how he likes it. So I'll stop right there with that first paragraph, Stefan. And I must tell you that in my practice of now over 20 years, I do come across the couples where the female will share that she feels uncomfortable talking about certain sexual desires that she may have, or is concerned about asking him questions about what he would like, so that she doesn't seem unknowledgeable, or she doesn't want to seem too knowledgeable. So please help my ladies out there, and how they can create that balance.
Well, one, I think the most important key is we have to start sexual discussion early in relationships. All right. Even for those who are waiting till marriage or however long you want to wait, that doesn't mean you don't talk about sex, because it's extremely important to make sure you're both on the same page and that you both can be open and honest with each other about your desires and your even your fantasies. Because again, it serves no purpose to restrict expressing yourself or asking certain questions to then end up being with a man that you now cannot satisfy, or he cannot satisfy you, because there's no clarity in the relationship. So you're only undermining the success or the potential success of the relationship by being afraid to open up. And the reality is that we have to love each other at our core, and that means our sexual core as well. And I think that women have to understand, in my opinion, though there are men out there who may judge you for quote unquote being too knowledgeable or too experienced, I don't think that trumps, in most situations, you showing a willingness to satisfy his desires. All right. The fact that you are willing to even ask to actually implement the things that he's asking for, this is going to be valued way more than, oh man, but she's done this before. All right. And again, if he's the kind of guy who's going to hold that against you, is this really the kind of guy you want to establish a relationship with? Because then what else does he hold against you? What else does he judge you on? How will you feel comfortable being yourself around this man if you cannot be transparent in that area? So it completely is unhealthy to take that approach of, well, I don't want to ask and I don't want to talk about these things. No, we got to establish that early as possible.
I absolutely agree with you. So in where it's undermining the relationship, if they're not actually opening up to sharing with him, how in your coaching then you walk the woman through expressing herself in that way, and you help her with, for example, that wording and how to do that.
Yeah, so I think, well, one, we first have to address the root issue, because there's a difference between he has given you reason to be fearful of opening up versus you projecting a negative outcome to opening up. You projecting on him, well, he may not be able to handle this. Like, if he has shown you nothing that says he will judge you on your past, then, but maybe you went through that with other men, or maybe you have friends telling you, girl, don't say nothing, he might use it against you. Like, that's a problem we have to address within you, you know. But if it's an issue with what he's done, things that he's displayed that shows he's not open-minded, then before we even attack the sexual discussion issue, we need to attack the judgmental issue. We need to attack, okay, is this a man who is willing to create an environment where you can open up? Because if he's not, then you don't need to be with him, period. Like, for us to even dive into the sexual part, what's the point? If we discover that he's just a judgmental man who, in his presence, you are not going to feel safe being yourself, then we've identified you're in the wrong relationship. And at that point, we move forward. But if it is fixable, once we address the root issues, now we can go through, all right, sitting down and creating a plan for how we're going to have these discussions, and how we kind of slowly integrate that more and more to help the woman become more comfortable with opening up. Maybe she doesn't want to dive too deep in the first conversation, but let's maybe sit down once a week and talk about some things here and there with each other, and start laying some things out and build our way up to maybe the heavier sexual topics.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I would love to address the fact that you said that having this type of conversation prior to committing yourself to the relationship, or if you're planning on waiting to marriage, and having this conversation before, what if, what happens if once that time comes into the bedroom, now let's say you're married, it's
Mhm.
honeymoon night, or that's it, the woman decided to be intimate with him after she's felt the commitment, they've now moved in together, and now will be that very first time. What if there isn't that connection there? Or better yet, is there a difference? Because I feel that some of my patients have also been confused with,
Mhm.
uh, is there a difference between sexual connection and sexual chemistry, even in the bedroom? Maybe you should elaborate on what you've written in your book, The Man God Has for You, which I loved chapter 5, that actually is, you'll experience a genuine connection, not just chemistry, knowing that that man is right for you.
Mhm.
What's the difference?
Okay. So when we put it within the dynamic of sexual relations,
Mhm.
the easiest way to explain it is that connection feeds the desire and feeds the willingness to satisfy each other. Chemistry is the implementation and the way that we actually are able to flow together in the bedroom. So one, there is a difference because, all right, you can have two people, they have this deep connection. And because they have this deep connection, they want to satisfy each other. They want to pour into each other. They want to perform their best for each other, right? But that doesn't always translate well into the bedroom because consider now, and there's various things to consider.
Mhm.
Two people who have a connection, the man may become very nervous because now you actually care about what's going to happen here. You know, people don't understand, and this is my opinion, and as a professional, you may agree or have a different perspective, but
Tell
I
me.
feel like people don't realize when you don't care, it's actually easier to have great sex because the hindrance of great sex is very mental. All right. So again, men get in their own way, they become more passive, they become more cautious. That does not play well in the bedroom. All right. A woman, she's all in her head when she cares so much. What does he think? Am I doing this right? And she's bombarding herself in a way that she's not able to even enjoy the experience as well as be truly present for the experience. So when there's a lot of care and we don't know how to navigate through that, it can create a sexual experience that isn't that great. All right.
Mhm.
Not because it can't become great. It's just that we have to now learn what's getting in the way or why we're having those issues. And to just finish the point of not caring, but when we don't care, like the man who doesn't care, all right, he's more willing to be assertive. He's more willing to be passionate. His energy is different. It comes off almost as confident because he's just going in, he's not overthinking. Sex is not something to overthink. You have to kind of flow with each other. All
Mhm.
right. And so if you're too much in your head, that blocks your ability to do that. When the woman doesn't care, she's no longer stressing herself about, is this too soon? What does he think? He literally becomes a life-size dildo to her. He's literally a sex toy to her because all she's there for is pleasure. You see, she's no longer connected to the emotional side of it. She's not connected to the, well, what happens after this? She's just present for pleasure. And great sex requires us to be very present for the pleasure. All right. We can't be worried about all this other stuff. Let's just focus in here.
Mhm.
So all that to say, now what I want people to understand is that, and this is why I believe so many people experience great sex in toxic relationships or great sex with people they're not truly into, because again, that lack of care, that detachment from the emotions and being all in our head allows us to just, it's more animalistic, just go at it, enjoy it. Whereas again, when our emotions are involved and we don't know how to handle that, it can throw things off. So going back to the question of, but again, I have to also say that doesn't mean it can't be fixed. Because here's the difference though. Sexual chemistry with someone that you don't really care about or you're not really into like that, it will not last in most cases. it's gonna fade away at some point. So it's only good in casual, temporary, short-term situations. In long-term relationship, it's not sustainable. All right. Because to have long-term successful sex, you need connection. Connection is the fuel that keeps people wanting to pour into each other and satisfy each other, which is a huge piece of the puzzle when we're talking about great sex. So the two people who have a connection, they have the fuel. The problem is now the implementation. So going back to the difference between the sexual chemistry and the sexual connection, yes, they can have a connection, but chemistry is off because, like I said, he's nervous. She's in her head. They have not learned each other yet. I think too many people are living with this microwave mentality of the sex is supposed to be amazing from the jump. That's not always the case. It may just take a few tweaks here and there, just a little bit of patience, and it can change everything, you know? And so, but a lot of people just are impatient and they're not willing to be very transparent and talk about what exactly needs to change. What is lacking here? Why was this? Let's have those discussions, because again, if we have a connection, then I do believe we have what we need to make it amazing. But we have to understand that the chemistry, because chemistry is all about how two or more people flow together, how two or more people work together. And that's why chemistry at its core can be built and it can be destroyed. All right. Connection is a constant. It will always be there. You can't build it. You can't destroy it. It's just two people either have it or they don't. But chemistry, you can build it, and think about like sports. You put a bunch of players together, they can build chemistry. A corporation can have team building exercises to build chemistry. But someone does something stupid, it can destroy the chemistry of the group. It can destroy the chemistry of the team. So it's something that can come and go. So that is the difference, especially when we talk about the sexual dynamic of it.
I love how you elaborated on that. In that sense, so it's when the man feels pressure to perform.
That's definitely that can be one of it, yeah.
And he was not able to, for example, completely satisfy her. And with the woman, maybe she just doesn't let go enough to obtain an orgasm. Yes.
Exactly. And as well as, again, people have a tendency to bring in old habits to new relationships. So
tell them.
I mean, we're talking about like if we're gonna to talk about sex, let's get into it. Like, okay, if the guy is accustomed to giving oral a certain way that has worked on the last 4 women he's been with, or however many women, he may not understand that that specific technique does not work for this specific woman. Not that he does not have the capability to be great at it, but there may be a slight adjustment when it comes to her. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with her. What she did with previous guys that maybe drove them crazy, it may not work the same with this guy. But people get so stuck in their old habits because it worked for them that they don't know how to come out of that. And they also take offense to the idea that they're not doing it right for this person. You know, like, to me, my mentality is this. I think everyone should believe that they are capable of being an amazing lover, but you will not be an amazing lover with everybody. So I could have had 10 experiences, all right, that I blew their mind. But I'm still going to come into experience number 11 open-minded enough to understand it may play out differently. And it doesn't mean I'm bad. It just means I have to make some adjustments for her. That's it. We have to humble ourselves when it comes to sex. But everyone wants to believe they're so damn good that it's impossible, all right, for them to not have satisfied somebody. And it's like, yo, people are different. You know, people have different spots that are more sensitive than others, that create more pleasure than others. People have a different tempo to how they like their sex. There's all these things you have to take into consideration. And I think that's the other issue that throws things off. And again, because people have had experiences where sex with someone was amazing from the jump, they get spoiled by that. and they think that should be the norm, and it's not. You got lucky. Let me tell you something. I think anyone who's honest, if you've had enough sex in your life, or more specifically, if you had enough sexual partners in your life, you learn very quickly that the majority of them are mediocre to below average. All right. Most people you lay down with are not going to be great. So that should tell you something. It's because, again, there's a learning curve, and we have to embrace the learning curve, especially if we love this person and we see we can build a relationship with them.
You are brilliant. You're amazing. I have had to literally tell that to patients as well, because, I'll have a woman tell me in the office, with my first marriage, it wasn't like that. Our sex was phenomenal. Well, now you're divorced, so obviously, in my mind, I'm saying, but everyone is a uniquely beautiful soul. That's the wording that I utilize and so on to share with them. And you're absolutely right. That absolutely plays a part. If I may, I've also noticed that what does play a part, and we're talking about sexuality, sexual health, and relationships. A woman that maybe in her last marriage, her last relationship, used to have mind-blowing orgasms, is now with this new person. But in examining, and I'm using a woman as an example, then I'll use a man as an example, I've noticed that she has weakened circulation, or she has issues with, let's say, varicose veins or spider veins. And I know I have to go into doctor mode for just a minute, but, then I know that she's having poor circulation on the lower extremities. So she's with her partner. She wants to experience those mind-blowing orgasms. She's not as sensitive as she knows that she used to be. So I work on her and so on and so forth, feed her body what it's missing, nourishing, supplementation, change in diet, no more fried food, for example, that kind of thing. That blocks that good blood flow, and then all of a sudden things get corrected. So I would love, in addition to what you've said, that everyone is absolutely uniquely different. Slightly, sometimes other factors play a part. So let's say man as well, right? He's in his second marriage. He says to me that, our first marriage, I have a couple right now. He's 17 years older than her, and she at the beginning, their sex was great, and all of a sudden he's kind of like waned. Well, it's also the fact that he's gained a bit of weight, and there's more fat in the middle, and so on. And so helping them with those types of issues sometimes also helps, but definitely sexual mental health, I believe, is part of this. Yes?
Absolutely. And to go deeper into that, I do think people overlook the physical aspect of this, how they are or are not taking care of themselves. I even believe, this may sound crazy, but I believe that the majority of men today don't even know what their true penis size is. And what I mean by that is because this generation of men a lot of them have grown up on porn and excessive masturbation. All right. I don't think they realize how that has negatively impacted the full potency of their penis. And so they may still be at a good place with it. Some are struggling and are not being open and honest about it. But a lot of them don't realize if they made some corrections to their habits, to their eating, to the way they take care of themselves, not only would the sex become more enjoyable, but they would become more well-equipped to provide pleasure to their partner. It would change the game, and I think, and then there's the other side of men who have become overly reliant on the pills that they come out with now, with some over the counter, some at the gas station. There's a lot of different pills now that men are engaging in, and I get it. I'm not mad at them for getting it, but I think what ends up happening is it blinds them from the lack of health going on within their body. And a lot of men don't realize, and I would say this applies to women as well, how their genital, what's going wrong in your genitals is an indicator that there's something going wrong with your body. Like if you are not getting proper blood flow to your penis, that means you're not getting proper blood flow in your body. There's something off. If you're not having morning erections, listen, your testosterone might be too low and you may have blood flow issues.
Yes.
but people have become so accustomed to like thinking this is normal rather than realizing you are nowhere close to your optimal self. And at your optimal level, or at least closer to it, that alone is enough to improve the sexual quality, both for you and for the partner.
Oh, exactly. Agreed. I've over 20 years of practice, and I am seeing men, Stefan, in their 30s having issues with erections.
Yep.
Not something that I used to see in the beginning of my practice when I used to help with men with challenges of impotence or erectile dysfunction. It was literally, over 50, over 60. I
Mm-hmm.
feel astounded that I'm seeing younger and younger men with this. You're absolutely right. And what people are exposing themselves to, too much estrogen, hormone disruptors. Yes, low
Yep.
testosterone is exactly what you said. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Yes. So, my friends, take this into account. Sometimes all in your head, it can deal with imbalances happening in the physical as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, love, love, love that you've stated that. Wonderful. Uh, Maybe I'll go into the second paragraph, shall I? Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Or how about we move to how sex evolves? Because you mentioned that a moment ago, that it does change and it does shift.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it shifts from relationship to relationship, but even within a long-term relationship, sex shifts. So you have in the second part of chapter 7 of your book, Cherish, sex evolves. Sex is not supposed to stay the same for the course of your marriage or long-term relationship. Just because you've been married or in a long term relationship a while doesn't mean things can't change. Men, like women, evolve. We start to develop different tastes, we start to develop different desires. Sex in marriage or a long term relationship should consistently be a learning process. You must
Mm-hmm.
continuously reintroduce yourself to your partner. Again, this book was written for women. There are always new things that he may be open to or that he may be looking for. You want to be able to tap into that and explore those things. Be open and willing to talk to him about sex. Be willing to try different things out with him. In order to do this, you must be open minded. Love that. You can't come into sexual relations with your partner with any preconceived notions of how it should be. I'll end there. Uh, would you like to elaborate any more on that?
Yeah. So I mean, essentially, like you read in the chapter,
Mhm.
we evolve, we change for various reasons. Things may start to pique our interest later in life that we weren't interested in before. Things that maybe we viewed as, oh hell no, we wouldn't do that. Well, now we're like, well, maybe we'll give it a little try. Maybe a couple drinks and we can make this happen, you know?
Yes.
And I think it is important to, again, people have to humble themselves. People have to not fall into the trap of just doing the same old.
Hmm.
And all it requires is creating an environment of openness and transparency that allows your partner to tell you when that new desire is popping up. All right. And again, it's the same thing. We would want the men to be free to express themselves, but we want the woman to be free to express herself. Because again, there's things that women thought they would never do. And then years later, they're like, okay, you know what? I'm open to it. And not only am I open to it, when they actually do it, they love it. So it becomes a new thing they want consistently that they didn't want before. And that's why I think, the basis of marriage or long-term relationship or commitment to each other is we've got to be willing to embrace each other's needs and desires and be willing to pour into them. And that means, yes, the needs and desires may change. Now, listen, I understand that some people may have a line that they draw that they're not going past. All right. And that you got to determine what that is. Hopefully it's something that you guys can discuss in advance. But I think just at least creating that environment where we can at least talk about it when that issue comes, so that we can address it in the best way possible and be able to sustain a great relationship. That's what's most important as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed. Agreed. Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for that. let's shift things a moment. I would love to know your perspective when it comes to in the bedroom, the dynamics between masculine and feminine. And I'm actually going to share with you some factors of a consultation that I had with a patient today.
Okay.
37-year-old woman, they are trying to conceive their second child. They were trying for a year and to no avail. So they came to me for help. So I'm helping them in conceiving their second baby. And they are both entrepreneurs, she and her husband. They are together all the time and such. And they work out together and everything. And she's actually doing boxing. She's boxing and so on. And what I know and what research tells us is that when a woman is doing certain masculine aspects, she will start producing naturally producing testosterone, push
Mm.
her over to her masculine side. Now, we all, men and women, have female and masculine and feminine energy. We have both.
Mm.
However, my predominant energy is feminine, your predominant energy is masculine.
Yes.
But today, have you found that with your clients, women are pretty much um, pushed and somewhat forced to be more on their masculine side because they're CEOs and they're producing companies and they're just doing and becoming huge money makers and so on and so forth. So today's society is obviously not like the past. The woman
Hmm.
is out there doing, making things happen and so on. And that pushes her so far there that hormonal imbalances set in. Her estrogen is low, her progesterone is low, and testosterone goes up. So she actually admitted she's aggressive. She is aggressive and that she wants more sex, but he's not kind of responding to sex, you know? And I did talk her through
Hmm.
a way of her in a feminine way, initiating when she's desiring it, when she's in the mood for it. What do you think is a way? I mentioned to her, well, there's a way of a woman doing that. How about you just communicate to your husband, honey, whenever I light a candle in the bedroom, that's when I want you. That's
Hmm.
I desire to have you and just feel delicious urges and such, right? How about every time that he comes back into the bedroom and finds you in your negligee, although I hope she's wearing lingerie every day. Uh, right, things like that. So what to do when a woman wants more sex than the man because the man tends to be more turned off when a woman is like that.
Well, so I would argue that it's not that he's turned off simply by her desire for it, or her desiring it more. I think, what was coming to mind was basically no one wants to sit down and eat if the food's not going to taste good. Okay.
Elaborate
So,
on that, please.
all right. So basically, the step one to enticing a man to want to have sex more is to make sure that he's going to be satisfied when the experience happens. So I think that it's very possible that this woman, she desires sex more. She's walking more her masculine energy. And in that, she's not being in tune with what feeds him, what satisfies him. She's just trying to get his. So now it becomes a chore to her. And think about it. It's the same way when a lot of women, when they're married, they start to feel like sex is just a chore because this man is not ensuring that when she sits down to eat, it's going to taste good. He's not ensuring that she's going to get the payoff that he's going to get. So it gives her less incentive to want to be bothered with that. It becomes more of an annoyance. So I think that she has to first evaluate, okay, is he even being satisfied? Am I now getting so blind by my desire for it that I'm not realizing that he's not getting the joy out of it, the actual experience? Now, once we can enhance the experience, so it's another saying I use, everyone wants to come to work if they're going to get paid. It's like, listen, if you know the payoff is there, you're much more willing to show up to work. So I think that once you address that issue, he becomes a lot more open because he knows he's going to get what he needs as well as you getting what you need. I think also it's not just about the sexual action in the bedroom. So what I've seen in a lot of situations, and I'm not going to say it applies to her situation that you gave me the example of, but what I've seen from a lot of women is that for years they have neglected their husband when he wanted sex. All right. He becomes conditioned to her no. He becomes conditioned to it not happening on a regular. And in that conditioning, he can also start to let himself go in various ways, because now it's just like, all right, well, now he starts to masturbate more. Now he starts to find other coping mechanisms, right? Which all those things take away that fire to be present in the bedroom, all right? And then what happens in some situations is whether it be, like you said, they start working out more, something happens that raises the testosterone, raises the libido, or even they simply start to want it more, the woman, because they've lost the validation of him wanting it. See, when he always wanted it and she got to say no, she still got to feel desirable, all right? When he stops trying, it's like, wait a minute, okay, so now she's trying to get it back simply because she wants to feel desired again. She wants to feel validated again. But that point, the foundation has been muddied up with a bunch of nonsense that we have to address and correct first, as well as consider the fact that, okay, in this process, are you looking the same way you used to look? I think physical attraction is something that doesn't get discussed enough. And we have to accept the fact that it plays a role, again, in how present someone is in the sexual experience. Because it's not enough to just lay down with each other, especially when you're in a long-term relationship. People want to feel like their partner is into it. People want to feel like it's back to when we first met and it's that fire and all these things. Okay, well, understand that y'all may not look the way y'all used to look. And that is having an impact on your ability to really have that strong passion, desire. And that's something that, if fixable, needs to be fixed. And if we're going to be honest, in most situations, it is fixable. It's just, are people willing to put in the effort to fix it? So all that to say, going back to the original question of, how does the woman get her man to want to have sex more? I think it starts with, again, making sure he's being satisfied in the experience, making sure that there's at least enough physical attraction for him to even want to be present and have that desire there. And then from there, I would say then it's also a matter of, okay, we know that her being in that environment and boxing has raised her libido. He might need to implement some things that help him with his libido.
They do it together.
Huh?
They do it together.
Oh, they do it together. But I would still argue that sometimes certain things can have a certain impact on one that it doesn't have on the other. So essentially, like, there was years that I was working out and still had low testosterone.
It actually lowered his testosterone last year, and so he was actually using some sort of, I guess, chemical form of
testosterone injections,
and it actually hindered his sperm count.
You see, so and that's what I'm saying. Like, there could be other things within him that have to be addressed that might be getting in the way,
right?
And might be hindering him,
right?
So I say that I think all of that needs to be considered if the goal is to get him to be more receptive to her sexually.
Thank you. Magnificent, magnificent. How about the other extreme, where she never initiates, she is very feminine, and always responds to her partner when he wants it. The moment that he touches her, she's open. She's definitely thinking about it. Her juices start flowing. Wonderful. Is it actually okay for a woman to initiate, or what do you think?
In my professional opinion, it is necessary for a woman to initiate. I think there may be some rare situations, and I use the word rare uh, to really push through the point that it is not a common thing. It is rare that a man is going to have an issue with his woman initiating. I think if anything, if we were to survey men, you would hear more of them saying they wish their partner initiated more. Because again, people want to feel desired. All right. And if it's only happening when I try to make it happen, then it's possible that I start to feel like you're only doing this out of obligation, that you're not really into me like that. Yes, it's great that you give it to me when I want, but it's even better when you can be the one that comes and get it, when you can be the one that starts to tap me on the shoulder or whatever the case may be, or pull me in the bathroom and make something happen. That to me is very necessary, because again, everyone wants to feel desired, men and women.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. So she doesn't have to feel that that is going to cause an issue in the relationship with the dynamic of masculine and feminine, where he desires to be the chaser. It's all right.
No, yeah, so that's the thing that women have to understand, that I think they have gotten wrong, is
Mhm.
that the whole men being the chaser, it doesn't hold true when we're talking about marriage and when we're talking about real love and emotions being involved. All right.
Mhm.
So what I'm saying is, when men are young, so to speak, or old, whatever, and they're seeing all these different beautiful women, yes, there may be this fun that plays into chasing after this one and that one, the hunt. Can I get this one? Can I get that one? Because there's not an emotional investment here as far as real deep feelings. All right. They don't get hurt in that process. They might get disappointed. A rejection can happen, but it's not the same as putting your heart on the table for a woman and she not wanting you. Once he's really into a woman, chasing is exhausting. All
Mhm.
right, because now it now hurts him more. Her rejection is gonna hit him harder. Like I always say, it's easier to chase lust than it is to chase love. All right,
Mhm.
and that's why you'll see some situations where women will deal with toxic men, and those men never stop chasing her. And someone will say, oh, he must really love her. No, he doesn't love her. That's why it's so easy for him to keep chasing no matter how much she pushes him away, because it doesn't hurt him. It doesn't phase him like that, because he's locked into what serves him and what he wants. He's like a tiger just going after a piece of meat, and that's all he's worried about, is getting that piece of meat. When he loves you, there's way more to it now. And now when you push him away, that hurts more. That weighs on him more. It's harder for him to keep getting back up and pushing forward if you keep resisting him. All right. So many times that guy is not going to chase as long as the man who doesn't love you. And I know that might sound confusing to some people, but it's just real, because you
Mhm.
can't think that chasing is a something that a man who loves you truly wants to do. Now, going back to the whole sexual thing, um, one, if she's worried about the dynamic of the masculine and feminine, she simply needs to talk to the man, but also understand that the feminine is seduction. So you don't have to say, come on, get in the room, let's go. That's very masculine, right?
Correct.
But you go sit on his lap, you go rub on him, you know what I'm saying? You go grab him in certain places, softly, whatever. That's not masculine.
Okay.
That is part of being feminine. You
Yes.
know, is being a seductress. So I think women look at it wrong. Initiating is not necessarily a masculine trait. It's the energy behind the initiation. It's how you go about the initiation that determines masculine or feminine energy being exhibited, but not just initiating in a general sense.
Agreed. Oh, brilliant. That I'm sure put a lot of women and men at ease. Thank you. Oh, amazing. Oh, we have just a short amount of time left. Oh, no, no, no. Let's get more questions. Um, I had some questions here. Let's see. No, let me go. Let me continue with this because this is too juicy. Let's go. You also address here the power of experimenting. This is the third section of chapter 7. in sexual satisfaction. Another thing to consider when working to improve sexual relations with your partner is experimentation. I'm going to be honest with you. You might be married or in a long term relationship with a man you feel is conservative. This is a good one. One of those guys who's just not into all the extra stuff when it comes to sex. You might have interest in trying different things, but are reserved about doing a lot of extra freaky stuff in the bedroom and experimenting because you don't want him to look at you a certain way. We kind of addressed this, but you don't want him to judge you and you don't want him to ask a question like, where'd you learn this? Where's this coming from? Who have you been sleeping with? I get it. It can be a bit discouraging uh, for you to initiate kinky sex acts. I will say this: you know your husband better than I do, or a long term partner. If you know that there are certain things he's going to be against and that he's not open to, ask him why and approach him delicately. What would you suggest that a woman even say at that point? Because what if she's dealing with someone that again is that crude, or it's a religious thing that is
Mhm.
taboo. We're not supposed to talk about those things. Why are you a woman thinking of those things, you know?
So again, I think that one, this is why we have to establish these discussions early on. The first mistake is that we're waiting this long into a relationship to even try to navigate through this issue. You know, we need to establish early on that to me, when people say, well, how are you supposed to know if you have sexual chemistry if you don't have sex with each other? Talk to each other. If y'all, people would reveal early on if they're this prude person that's not open-minded. You would not need to lay down with them to figure that out. All right. We just aren't having the conversations. It's almost like we rather jump into bed than just talk about it first.
Ah,
And that's what throws everything off, because now you've already started the train moving and now you're afraid to rock the boat or whatever by bringing up these other things. So I think that one, this is why it's so important to establish this early on. The second point I want to make is that I think women are not, what's the word I'm looking for? It goes back to the when I mentioned being a seductress.
hmm.
I feel like women are losing or have lost sight of their persuasion powers. Okay. And so I understand that some people are conservative, right? But to me, there's a matter of seduction and persuasion, and not in a negative, unhealthy way, that can lead someone to the water, so to speak, rather than having to go through all the discuss. Not, and you should still have a discussion, but understand that all you need is an opening, so to speak, to maybe work your way towards that. And again, it's always about maybe it's a trade-off. Like, okay, let's say, for example, she wants anal. I'm just gonna use that as an example. And he's like, oh hell no, I don't do no anal. That ain't gonna happen, right?
Oh, that's a
But
many
maybe
discussion in my office with patients, let me just say.
say it again.
Many a discussion in my office with
Oh,
patients.
all right. And so now, here's a couple ways to consider it.
Yes.
One, if there's something that maybe he really likes that you haven't been doing, maybe it's a trade-off. All right, well, how about if I do a little bit more of this for you? You'll try this out with me. All right. Because one thing I can say about men is that men are very results driven. If doing A will equal B and he likes B, he's more willing to do A. All right. He just needs to know there's something that I'm going to be able to gain out of this, or a desired result will come out of this. And so I think, again, women have to kind of think outside the box, and it's going to vary from person to person, but consider, how do you ease this person into maybe trying some things out? How do you tap into maybe their desires so that they're more willing to tap into your desires? And again, some situations are going to boil down to you're with the wrong person. Because I would argue that in most of these cases where these people have this issue of, well, this person's prude and I want to try different things, it is very rare that those two people have a genuine connection outside of the bedroom. Plain and simple. All right. So that's where the issue really started. Because what did I say earlier? Connection is the fuel to want to please each other in all ways. When we don't have that connection, we are less willing to move past our hangups to satisfy our partner in the way that they want to be satisfied. But when we're really into them like that, when we really love them like that, we are at least willing to consider it a little bit more than we would with the next person. And listen, I've seen women who could be the biggest prude with 3 guys and then become like a porn star with the 4th guy. All right. So to me, I'm never fully convinced by they just won't do it. I do think there's some things that people just won't do, but I think in a lot of cases, it's all about the environment, creating a more place of trust, security, safety, you know what I'm saying? And again, making sure both sides are getting what they need out of this to make it enjoyable for everybody.
Oh my God, agreed. And okay, so that's beautiful. What about the criticism part, or you elaborate here on embracing constructive criticism.
Mm-hmm.
You wrote, during my tour and speaking engagements, I talked to women about how to constructively criticize their men on bedroom performance. This is tough. This is tough because it you know it does so much comes out in the office when a couple is finally sitting in front of me, and they feel that one, since I always tell them that one can't interrupt the other, they feel, oh, now I can say it because she'll listen. In other words, I would listen. And so what then? You wrote, in this book, I want to focus on how you can best receive constructive criticism from your man. Yes, women, ladies, take that into account as well, for the benefit of improving your sex life. Be open to constructive criticism from your partner regarding his sexual pleasure. With that said, he's not allowed to insult you or degrade you in any way with this criticism. That's not acceptable. However, it would be smart and best for you to create an environment where you both can talk to each other honestly. We kind of touched upon that. But how to bring that into also what you have here, being consistent and not using sex as a weapon, which is the next section.
So yeah, so one, as far as the criticism, say it again.
Forgive me. Too many women and men do that. Let's talk about both. We shouldn't just talk about ladies here. But
okay. So first, as far as the criticism is concerned, again, like we talked about earlier in this interview, is creating an environment where we can talk to each other, where we don't take things personally. And again, the earlier we can establish that dynamic, the better. The problem is, if you wait too long, so consider this, and I think a lot of women don't realize this. Too many women lie to their man, all right? Whether it's direct lying or lying by omission, they lead this man to think he is great in bed. So now imagine being a man who for years you believed you were great, that you do, you rock her world. Now, when you guys are having problems, and we're sitting in front of a counselor, she wants to say, this isn't working, that. You're going to think she's being petty. You're going to think she's retaliated. You're going to think she's crazy, because how did you tell me I was good and now all of a sudden I'm bad? My stroke didn't change. My penis size is the same. I mean, what exactly happened that all of a sudden I'm bad? The problem is it was always actually bad. But she never told him until now. You can't do that. This is what women set themselves up for. I'll never forget, I once had a couple, and it was in the session that the man found out for the first, and they were married for 3 years, and I think together for 7. And he found out for the first time he never gave her an orgasm. So imagine, how was he supposed to feel? How was he supposed to react to that? Now, he took it in stride, but it's very normal for a lot of men to retaliate and think, oh no, she's just talking trash. She's trying to make me look bad, because again, you are screaming and hollering all these other times, shaking your leg, acting like you getting it. And now you want to claim you never got it? This is what happens in so many situations. So that's why it's so important that we have these discussions as early as possible. And so that kind of brings me to the weaponizing of it, because it's not just weaponizing it in regards to withholding it. but it's also not weaponizing it as far as how we criticize each other, not using it to get under each other's skin or to make the other feel bad. You know, that's because all you're doing is going to plant a negative seed that hurts the future sexual interactions between you and your partner. So you got to be very careful with that. And understand that sex is not made to be used as a weapon. You know, I think, especially for married couples, a lot of people forget, and I want to say, especially for married spiritual couples, I think they forget that part of the purpose of marriage is sex. I think there's been this idea that, oh no, it's just, I don't know, just for two people to come together and love each other. No. Like there's literally scripture which pretty much says, if you can't control yourself, it's better for you to be married to have your needs met than to be basically out in these streets being sexually immoral. All right. So he is essentially saying, to make sure you are satisfied and can stick to one person, go get married. Yeah. All right. And then it goes further to say, do not withhold your body from your partner. And for some reason, married spiritual folks seem to forget, like, yo, this is a direct violation of what we're supposed to be embracing in marriage. So it is absolutely wrong to weaponize it in any kind of way. We've got to be willing to find ways to resolve whatever issues we're having. And I have to say this is why I've gotten to a point where I'm very anti-porn. I'm even anti-toys. And once upon a time, I used to be pro for all of those things, right? But I became anti those things simply because it's not even about like demonizing it in a way that it's so wrong. I'm not even going to make that argument. It's simply the issue of what I'm seeing is that porn and toys have become the scapegoat of those not having fulfilling sexual relationships. All right. And so now you become so much more attached or so much more conditioned to just, okay, she's not in the mood. Let me go watch some porn and masturbate. Oh, he's not going to give me what I want or need. Let me go grab this toy. If those outlets did not exist, you guys would have more incentive to try to find a way to make it work with each other. How can we improve this? Because we don't have any other way to get this done. But because you do, you start to drift in the opposite direction instead of coming together more. Now, it isn't to say that some people may not have been able to healthily manage porn and toys in their relationship without it becoming something that pulls them further away. But most people don't know how to keep it there. Most people, it does become a coping mechanism and an alternative to, rather than working things out in the bedroom with your partner and making things better.
Agreed. What I've heard, and also consultations with patients, is that let's say the male counterpart would feel offended because she either suggested it or she bought it on her own, and he ended up throwing it out. You know, because he felt that was a threat, you know, that kind of thing. So absolutely. And we really don't know what our partner is thinking when you bring certain things in. You just have to be careful, and you have to be mature enough to be able to create that balance there. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that also people are so limited in their thinking sexually. And what I mean by that is, okay, so let's say this man, this woman been having sex and it's not, or like people will say, how do I get the fire back? Right? We tried everything. I said, y'all tried everything? I said, okay, how many positions have you tried sexually? And they can only list like 5 positions. There are tons of positions. There's Kama Sutra. There's all these things. You haven't even dived into that and you're already giving up. You're already claiming we tried everything. You've tried nothing, okay? You're not even scratching the surface. And so that's the problem again with toys and porn sometimes, is that it's so much easier to turn to that than to actually put in the work to make each other better. Hell, like even if y'all have to go to one of those sexual retreats to learn how to get in tune with each other, again, try these different positions. Y'all never, there's so much to unlock sexually that can make it so much better without you having to use outside things to get satisfied. And so I think it's a dangerous way of thinking that we just default to these things automatically rather than no, let's dive deeper into each other first. And I don't know of any couple that has done the deeper work of diving into each other and did not see their sex enhanced. I just don't know of it, you know? So to me, I just feel like that's just a thing that a lot of people are missing the mark on.
Marvelous, marvelous. When you say these retreats or getaways that help them go deeper into how to enhance each other's sex life, things like tantra, that's what you recommend, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do also talk to my patients about Taoist sex principles. I love that you mentioned that. Absolutely, yes. Oh, I feel so bad that the time. However, that's definitely a factor in our conversation that I'd love to elaborate on sometime down the line on a part 3 interview, because these juicy conversations just need to be heard, be seen, and I so appreciate you, Stephan. You're brilliant. Thank you for the work that you do out there. I know people that have worked with you, and your results are magnificent. And the
Thank you.
joy that you bring into, yes, you're welcome, the joy that you bring into couples' lives. And I'm honored to say that you're my friend and that you do this type of work. So thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
Yes, yes. So everyone, Stephan's website is stephanspeaksshop.com. You can find all of his books there, information on how to schedule a consult with him and be able to be coached in your relationship so that it can be the most fulfilling, most brilliant experience you'll ever have in your lifetime. And so, thank you again. Have I forgotten anything? Please.
No, I think we're good.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you again, and look out, my friends, for a part 3 in the next part of the year coming on. And blessings to all of you. I'll say good night.
All right. Good night.
Good night.